there and welcome. This is a brand new edition of Primetime News on TV1. Today is the 3rd of November 2021. I am Jaima Ratnayaka for the Newsfirst team. Here are your headlines for tonight.
Joint trade union action launched to suspend the LNG agreement, protect the land of the port and to withdraw the Petroleum Resources Bill. Strike actions imminent if demands are not met. Parents of students take to the streets in support of the teacher struggle. Railway, bank and nursing staff take to the streets, demanding for a salary hike. Payment for the Chinese fertilizer ship will have to be made. A revelation from the JBP. Partly Champika makes a revelation on the import of liquid fertilizer from India. Queues for kerosene oil grow as the shortage of gas increases. Controlled price on sugar removed. Reverend Father Cyril Gamini writes to the CID after being summoned over a complaint filed by the Director of State Intelligence.
In your top story for tonight, CEB, ports and petroleum trade unions staged a protest at several areas this afternoon. The trade unions protested against the sale of 40% of shares of the Yugadanavi power plant to the New Fortress Corporation, the handing over of the contract to supply LNG and the sale of assets to foreigners.
The protests were staged by the Joint Alliance of Petroleum, Port and Electricity Trade Unions against the sale of national assets. The protests were staged opposite the head office of the CEB, the entrance of the port and the petroleum storage terminals at Kolonava and Sapukaskanda. The Ceylon Electricity Board, Engineers Union and the CEB United Trade Union Alliance staged the protest opposite the head office of the CEB. The protesters demanded for the LNG deal to be revoked. The chairman of the CEB said that the government can term this protest as an act against the state. We would like to ask these officials as to if they didn't see the legal manner in which they signed this agreement without even informing the cabinet and the 11 parties affiliated to the government. We are still suspicious as to if the two brothers have already sold the CEB and the power and energy sectors of the country to the Americans in secret. We would like to inform the government that we will take our struggle to the streets tomorrow.
If we stage a protest, the supply of power will break down. There will be no fuel. Operations at hospitals will break down and patients will die. So we would like to ask the government to withdraw this illegal, corrupt deal. If we have to stage a protest, we will stage a protest. This must be stopped.
We elected this government into power to stop the sale of national assets. We also told the people of this country that if this government that we elected starts to sell off national assets, we will be the first to take to the streets. The protest ended after a decision was reached for the future course of action to be announced following discussions between the trade unions. Members of ports trade unions also staged a protest in support of the trade union action of the Ceylon Electricity Board. The protest was staged opposite the entrance of the port against the LNG deal. The protesters also voiced their displeasure over the sale of lands belonging to the Ports Authority to India and China.
On the 21st of July, a cabinet paper was presented to sell 13 acres of valuable land and services offered at the port. Withdraw this cabinet paper immediately. If you do not, these employees are ready to step down from their duties tomorrow.
The time has come to stop this sale. If the government is preparing to sell off these assets again, we as trade unions cannot stand by doing nothing. Members of petroleum trade unions also staged a protest in support of the protests launched by the CEB trade unions. The protest was staged opposite the Sapukaskanda oil refinery, demanding the government to halt all attempts to amend the Petroleum Resources Act in a manner that the petroleum market will fall into the hands of foreigners. The oil tanks at the Chinese harbour in Hambantota, that is an asset of the people of this country, must be secured. The supply of petroleum was made a monopoly under Act number 28 of 1961. This must not be changed, and these resources must be made national resources. If the rulers can unite to sell off these assets, we as trade unions can unite to stop the sale of these assets. A protest was also staged opposite the office of the Petroleum Corporation in Kolonava this afternoon.
When Mahinda Rajapaksa came, he said that he does not agree with this and that he will not allow this to happen. 50 acres in Hambantota has been given to a Chinese company named Sinopec along with an oil refinery. If these are false statements, respond to them. Where can petroleum employees go? Representatives of the senior management of the Ceylon Electricity Board taking part in a media briefing held at the President's Media Centre said although CEB officials will resort to trade union action, the CEB will not let a blackout take place in the country. We have taken 2 trade union actions. However, I have instructed CEB officials not to suspend the supply of power even for maintenance purposes until further notice. Also, we have instructed the officials that their services are essential and we have informed them not to take any leave without prior approval until this situation is resolved. The proposition of New Fortress Energy Limited was to invest and construct a 300 megawatt power plant running on natural gas. They will supply the natural gas to this particular power plant and supply the necessary electricity to the machinery in other power plants. Then the government intervened and told them not to construct a power plant as that will give rise to many problems. Thereafter, the government came up with a proposition to sell 40% of shares of a privately owned Yugadanavi power plant to this US company. The government holds 50% shares of the Yugadanavi power plant. Thereafter, the officials of the Treasury, officials of the Attorney General's Department came into an agreement to sell 40% of shares to this company. On the 17th of September, an agreement in principle was signed to hand over 40% of shares to New Fortress Energy. The US-based company will pay $250 million and purchase these shares. That is massively beneficial for the country. That is the profit we will be gaining from a power plant that operated for 11 years and will be managed under the CEB in another 14 years.
The Railways General Employees Union engaged in a demonstration this afternoon, urging the government to increase salaries of all state workers by 10,000 rupees in line with the rising cost of living. The demonstration was held opposite the headquarters of the Department of Railways. The nursing staff attached to the Dambulla Base Hospital also staged a protest opposite the hospital this afternoon, demanding their salaries to be increased by 10,000 rupees to offset the exponential rise in cost of goods. Another protest was held at the Kandy National Hospital premises today, organized by nursing staff of the hospital. The protest had been organized, citing several factors including the failure of authorities to provide several bonuses even after making an assurance in writing. Bank employees engaged in a protest at the Kolpiti junction earlier today, urging authorities to activate the collective agreements reached in terms of granting salary increments to employees attached to state banks.
Parents of students today joined the struggle against the salary anomalies of teachers and principals. Parents who staged protests opposite several schools today said that the government's failure to resolve the salary anomalies of teachers and principals has affected the education of their children. Representatives of teachers' trade unions were also present at the protest organized opposite the Jetavanarame temple in Armour Street, Colombo.
The government attempted to create divisions between teachers and parents. Today we have joined together in this struggle. We would like to inform the government that this issue must be resolved before the budget. If not, we will continue our struggle. We have already held discussions with other trade unions as well. The Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa has not given an opportunity for teachers' trade unions to hold a discussion with him. He is making arbitrary decisions, thinking that he knows everything. We will show you our strength.
පච්ච නෝමතිකව පඬිතෙක් වගේ ඔක්කොම තමන් දන්නා වගේ තමයි ඉන්නේ. අපි කියනවා අපි පෙන්නන්නම් බලලා අපේ බලය. පොදු ජන පක්ෂේ සමුළුවේදී
The government is saying various things without solving the issue. Yesterday at the party convention of the SLPP, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa is saying that the teachers have taken to the streets because they couldn't go to the village. Come to the village and go to the schools. You will be able to see how parents have taken to the streets in support of teachers and principals.
Parents of students staged protests in Mount Lavinia, Mulleriyawa and Homagama as well. Parents who gathered opposite several schools in the Gampha town demanded authorities to provide solutions to the salary anomalies of teachers and principals. Protests were also staged in Kegol, Kalutara, Gaul, Matara, Hambantota, Anuradhapura, Damulla, Kandy and Nuwara as well. Although a protest was to be staged opposite the Mederigama Mahavidyalaya in Mavanalla, regional politicians intervened and obstructed the protesters.
A father of a student was dragged outside the gate and he was slapped. The mother was chased away. They ran along the road. One mother fell into a drain. The gates were closed and no one was allowed in.
The Mavanalla police also arrived at the scene. The teachers of the school later handed over a letter to the Mavanalla Zonal Education Office requesting for a transfer as they were inconvenienced at the school premises. The teachers of the school later handed over a letter to the Mavanalla Zonal Education Office requesting for a transfer.
A protest is organised in the Kegol town today demanding the government provide solutions to the rising cost of living, the fertilizer crisis and the teachers' principals' salary anomaly issue in the country. The protest march was led by opposition leader Sajith Premadasa. The protest march, which began from the Nidahas Mawata in Kegol, arrived at the Kegol town and then proceeded towards the Kegol Municipal Council shopping complex. The government says that they got it all wrong. They say the young people who drew murals on walls are now standing in queues. I would like to ask the government whether they were dreaming all this while. These people who are now opposing the government were in the government when every single wrong decision was taken to sell this country. They were in the government when they sold off the north and the south. These people were in the cabinet when cabinet papers betraying the country were signed. These are all but theatrics. I would like to tell these people in the government, if you have any self-esteem at all, come out instead of spewing lies to the general public and join hands with us. The opposition leader also said that swift steps will be taken to produce the mastermind of the April 21st attacks in court under a government run by the Samagi Janabalawegaya. Stop going hunting Father Cyril Gamini. Stop hunting His Eminence the Cardinal. All the perpetrators of the April 21st attacks must be brought before the law and punished. Under the role of a Samagi Janabalawegaya government, the perpetrators behind the April 21st attacks will be brought before the law.
The topic of importing organic fertilizer from foreign nations has been a main talking point in the country as of late, and to that effect, Vijita Herath from the JVP and Patali Champika Ranavaka from the Samagi Janabalawegaya made revelations on the fertilizer imported from China and India.
The import of the stock of fertilizer from China has now become the subject of controversy after the National Plant Quarantine Service of Sri Lanka discovered the presence of a harmful bacteria in the fertilizer and deemed the fertilizer unfit for use. Although the Ministry of Agriculture announced that the fertilizer contaminated with the bacteria will not be purchased, the Chinese ship carrying 20,000 metric tons of this fertilizer is currently in the Sea of Sri Lanka. Payments in respect of the letters of credit issued for the purchase were suspended by an order issued by the Commercial High Court. However, the Propaganda Secretary of the JVP, Parliamentarian Vijitha Herath, today revealed that the payments in respect of the letter of credit will be made.
Just as the General Manager of People's Bank said, we will have to pay $9 million for this mountain of waste. This is 2.1 billion rupees of the People's Bank, and it will have to be paid despite us bringing down this fertilizer or not. Whose money does the People's Bank hold? This is the money earned by a simple farmer who sells some bananas, mangoes and paddy. We will have to pay $9 million under the UCP 600 international rules. Under these rules, the People's Bank is bound to pay this amount. This is an international convention. It is a rule. Now we have to pay the $9 million. Jayasundara is saying that this is not a government-to-government deal. If that is true, then why is the Minister of Agriculture and the State Minister of Agriculture running to the Chinese embassy to clarify facts?
මේක රාජ්‍යයන් දෙක අතර ගනුදෙනුවක් නෙමෙයි. එහෙමනම් මොකටද තානාපති කාර්යාලයට කුෂිකර්ම ඇමතිවරයයි රාජ්‍ය ඇමතිවරයයි තකහණියක් දුවලා ගිහිල්ලා කරුණු පැහැදිලි කරන්නේ?
MP Vijitha Herath recently revealed in Parliament that there were a number of irregularities during the import of liquid fertilizer from India. He said that a private account was opened and the funds to be paid for these stocks of fertilizer were debited into this account. He clarified matters on this allegation as well.
How much money was spent to import nano fertilizer? We saw private accounts being opened at the Town Hall branch of People's Bank. 290 million rupees was deposited in this account. The account was closed last Friday, and the money in this account has now been deposited to the general account of People's Bank. The payment for the Indian nano nitrogen is being made via the general account now. How did they open a private account? How can government funds be transferred to a private account? These are illegal methods. We are spending $52,912,500 or approximately 12 billion rupees for the import of nano nitrogen.
රුපියල් කෝටි 1200ක්. රුපියල් කෝටි 1200ක වීදමක් දරනවා නෑනෝ නයිට්‍රජන් අපි ඉන්දියාවෙන් ගේන්නේ.
Former Minister Patali Champika Ranawaka expressed his views on the liquid nitrogen fertilizer that was imported from India.
The
actual price of a litre of nano urea, also known as IFFCO, is $7.74. But what is the price imposed by Mahinda Nanda and Shashindra Rajapaksa? $25 per 1 litre. So how much are they robbing from the importation of nano urea fertilizer? 8 billion. The government could have given 1 million farming families 8,000 rupees each from this money. You need 105 kilograms of urea to cultivate 1 hectare. If you are using nano urea fertilizer, you at least need 1,250 litres per hectare. With the amount that they have brought down, you can only cultivate 1,440 hectares. There are 800,000 hectares of cultivation lands in the country to be harvested in the Maha season. What is this joke?
While the controversy on the import of fertilizer to Sri Lanka continues, farmers continue to feel the brunt of the blow of the fertilizer shortage in the country. Farmers gathered in Hasalaka and demanded solutions to these issues. The protest was organized by the All Ceylon Farmers Federation and the Minipe Farmers Collective. This Rajapaksa government has dealt the most serious blow that farmers have ever faced. Think about it. To this date, farmers have never begged for anything from anyone. But Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Mahindananda Alutgamage, Shashindra Rajapaksa and Chamal Rajapaksa have gotten together, have band together and have dealt this blow not only to the farmers but to the police, businessmen and all of us. The rulers of this country do not have the wisdom of the farmers. Hold an election and we will show where you stand and where the farmers stand. The National Federation of Tea Smallholders staged a protest march from the premises of the weekly fair in Pasgoda, Matara to the Pasgoda town. We ask the government not to just shout nano fertilizer for everything. The imperialists burnt down hundreds of thousands of acres of arable land in Overwellassa and destroyed our cultivations. After that destruction, the biggest destruction of crops happened during the time of Gotabaya Rajapaksa. We can say that without any fear.
Parliamentarian S.M. Marikar expressed the following views on the fertilizer crisis today. Usually 138 kilograms of chemical fertilizer are used per 1 hectare of cultivation. If so, the death rate due to kidney disease is 23%, 100,000 of the entire population. In contrast, New Zealand uses 1,495 kilograms per hectare, but their death rate is around 1.22%. Bhutan is a country which uses the lowest number of chemical fertilizer, 36 kilograms per hectare. However, their death ratio is 27 for every 100,000 people. This itself proves the experts who advise the government have only made up blatant lies. Shortage of essential items have also grown to acute levels similar to that of the fertilizer crisis. The shortage has begun trickling down to even a plain tea commonly bought at a wayside shop. The price of a plain tea in Petta costs between 25 to 30 rupees at present. Labourers engaged in multiple odd jobs in the bustling town of Petta rely on the plain tea to quench their thirst and at times even their hunger. Price hikes of a number of essential items including sugar and gas has led to vendors increasing the price of a plain tea.
The government has decided to remove the maximum retail price imposed on sugar, approving the request of importers. It was decided during yesterday's meeting to remove the price control on sugar due to the increase in the price of sugar in the global market, increasing shipping costs as well as practical issues which exist in relation to the exchange rate of the US dollar. Furthermore, importers agreed to issue sugar at 150 rupees to consumers. Although consumers are afforded the opportunity to purchase sugar at lower rates from Satosa, Satosa has imposed a maximum purchasing limit per person. There is an issue concerning sugar. However, we will offer each consumer 2 kilos of white sugar at 122 rupees each and 3 kilos of brown sugar at 125 rupees each. 5 kilograms of sugar can be bought altogether. The gas shortage in the country has not yet seen an end either. Our correspondents revealed, although certain suppliers have received stocks of gas, they were insufficient to meet the demand. There is a growing trend of consumers purchasing kerosene oil in light of the gas shortage, leading to long queues opposite fuel stations.
We are suffering with our children. Who will aid us when our children complain to us that they are starving? They do not go to the president. They ask us. I have been searching for kerosene oil for 3 days. It's not available anywhere. Sugar is expensive too.
Commercial Leasing and Finance PLC, one of the flagship entities of the LOLC group, has topped the list of the most valuable entities listed at the Colombo Stock Exchange. Its market capitalization surpassed 452 billion rupees.
Commercial Leasing is now ahead of its very own parent company LOLC Holdings. Commercial Leasing and Finance PLC's market value now accounts for 9.77% of the total market capitalization of the Colombo Stock Exchange. Meanwhile, the Colombo Stock Exchange recorded another all-time high today after its benchmark all-share price index topped 10,412 index points. This was a 1.37% increase compared to the previous closing.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has highlighted the importance of promoting trade, tourism and education sectors in Sri Lanka when he held discussions with a number of state leaders and representatives at the COP26 summit yesterday.
According to the President's media division, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has held discussions with the Crown Prince and Prime Minister of Bahrain, Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, regarding strengthening of bilateral ties between the two countries. Many topics, including creating opportunities for skilled professionals to migrate to Bahrain instead of employment of domestic maids, have been shed light on during the discussions. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has also met with Prime Minister of Nepal, Sher Bahadur Deuba, yesterday. Attention has been focused to increase the number of flights between the two countries and the promotion of tourism and education sectors. The President met the Secretary General of Commonwealth, Patricia Scotland, as well. According to the President's Media Division, the Secretary General had vowed to extend Commonwealth support to broaden market opportunities for Commonwealth countries. The President had held discussions on various matters with Britain's Prince Charles, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, and Ngozi Okonjo, the Director General of the World Trade Organization.
Chief of Defence Staff and Commander of the Sri Lanka Army, General Shavendra Silva, engaged in an official tour of the Jaffna Peninsula today.
The Army commander who arrived at the security force headquarters in Jaffna was afforded a guard of honour. Thereafter, the Army commander travelled to the Palali airport and addressed the troops. An official handover of vehicles refurbished by the Sri Lanka electrical and mechanical engineers was also held under the patronage of the Army commander. General Shavendra Silva was then invited to inaugurate the new office complex and the officers' mess of the 7th Sri Lanka Army Women's Corps Regiment housed in Palali. The Army commander also inspected an organic fertilizer manufacturing plant operated by the Sri Lanka Army. The fertilizer was also distributed among area residents. We have been able to produce 4,000 litres of liquid fertilizer. We intend to produce 4,000 litres every 21 days from today onwards. As the Sri Lanka Army, we hope to go beyond our call of duty to assist this process by producing organic fertilizer in other camps situated across the island.
Reverend Father Cyril Gamini Fernando had informed the Criminal Investigations Department that he cannot appear at the CID today as a fundamental rights application was filed in the Supreme Court. Reverend Father Cyril Gamini Fernando, a member of the National Catholic Committee for Justice to Easter Sunday attack victims, was informed to appear before the CID at 9:30 a.m. earlier today to record a statement.
The Director General of the State Intelligence Service, Major General Suresh Saleh, filed a complaint with the Criminal Investigations Department on the 25th of October 2021 against multiple malicious statements made in reference to him with regard to the 2019 April 21st attacks by Reverend Father Cyril Gamini Fernando at an online forum on the 23rd of October 2021. Thereafter, the CID had informed Reverend Father Cyril that an investigation was launched into the complaint as per Article 3.1 and 3.2 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Act No. 56 of 2007 and several other articles. The CID informed Reverend Father Cyril Gamini to be present at the CID premises on the 28th of October to record a statement, to which Reverend Father Cyril said he requires a week's time to respond. Accordingly, the Criminal Investigations Department had informed him to be present at 9:30 a.m. today to record the statement. However, in a letter via his attorney, Reverend Father Cyril Gamini Fernando informed the CID that he could not appear at the CID as a fundamental rights application was filed with the Supreme Court and it will be taken up in the coming days. Reverend Father Cyril Gamini Fernando filed a fundamental rights application with the Supreme Court yesterday, seeking an order to prevent any attempt being made by the Criminal Investigations Department to arrest him after summoning him to the CID to record a statement. Reverend Father Cyril Gamini Fernando had requested in his application that the Supreme Court issue an order to the IGP, CID and other officials preventing them from arresting him until the examination of the FR application is over.
The Collective for Ethnic and Religious Harmony convened a press conference in Colombo earlier today.
The Mahasangha, including Chief Registrar of the Siam sect, Venerable Dr. Madagama Dhammananda Thero, other religious leaders, former Speaker Karu Jayasuriya and many other civil activists were present at the event. Certain people who engage in party politics are the reason why there are some clashes between opinions of various ethnicities and religious communities in Sri Lanka. They have destroyed the unity among communities and secured power. The same thing is happening even today. This has not developed and is widespread. We felt this very strongly in the recent past. I will not name anyone or reveal any information. The same person who was at the center of the incidents that unfolded in Digana has now been appointed to this high position. How can we hope for religious and ethnic harmony by doing things like this? So I am saddened by such incidents that are taking place.
සංහිඳියාවක් ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරා. ඒ නිසා මම බොහොම කනගාටු වෙනවා අද මෙවැනි සිද්ධීන් පිළිබඳව.
Up next is Crime Watch.
Crime Watch.
Time 9:15 last night. Location: a restaurant close to the Babdegama bus halt. An individual who was enraged after an altercation over a kottu went home and came back with a knife. He attempted to attack the owner of the restaurant. The son of the owner, who saw this, attacked this individual with a pestle. The individual died of the injuries he sustained. The deceased was a 25-year-old resident of Kottugada. The owner of the restaurant was hospitalized, and his son is in police custody.
Crime Watch.
More news follows after this short commercial break.
Do your online shopping with Sambole.lk. Home delivery and pickup now available.
Sambole.lk. Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Bellboy's got you covered. Download Bellboy today to get all your household appliance fixing and repairs done. Now available on Android and iOS.
Incidents of abuse have hugely escalated due to COVID-related stress. Don't mask yourself from recognizing and reporting abuse. Be responsible. Reach out. Call 077 5676 555. Times are hard. Don't let it get harder.
Welcome back to the news. General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, State Minister Dayasiri Jayasekara, responded to the statement made by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa regarding parties affiliated to the government at the SLPP party convention yesterday.
I believe that the Prime Minister is still the only leader who is there in the hearts of the general public. The statement made by the Prime Minister is a good example. He said that the party that provides leadership must know how to keep the other parties close. That is a good example. We are happy about the statement that he made as the leader of the Podujana Peramuna. Despite what others might say, we are thankful to him. That is the reason why I said that I have not yet seen a politician as experienced as him in Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, backbench MP of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna Kokila Gunawardana expressed these views about the parties affiliated to the government.
11 political parties are of this opinion that this was done in a hurry. The way I see it, all of the parties are simply targeting the next election. These people do not want the country to win. They are working for their personal victory. That is the reason why they are doing all of this. I would like to ask these ministers to use their ministries to work for their electorate. If you are leaving the government in protest of a government decision, then anyone can leave and do what they want.
In some positive news from the cricketing world, Sri Lankan spinner Wanidu Hasaranga has become the #1 ranked T20 international bowler according to the latest ICC rankings. Wanidu Hasaranga has topped the T20 international bowling list with a total of 776 points.